This podcast is brought to you by ProcessBarron. Handle everything better. Welcome to Powering the Process, the podcast focused on the real work behind industrial manufacturing. Each week, your host, Jen Little, digs into the systems, equipment, and strategies that keep plants running efficiently. From everyday operational challenges to emerging engineering solutions, we're here to share practical insights that help you keep your process moving. Let's get started.
Have you ever wondered what it takes to keep massive industrial systems running every day? It's not just engineering, it's boots on the ground, hands-on expertise, and quick thinking under pressure. Welcome to Powering the Process. Today we're going behind the scenes with some of the people that take care of this on a daily basis. These are our frontline problem solvers who step in when critical equipment needs repair, upgrades, or emergency fixes. From power plants to paper mills, they work in challenging environments to keep operations moving and downtime to a minimum. It's a job that demands precision, safety, and a deep understanding of complex systems. In this episode, you'll hear real stories from the field, what it's like to troubleshoot under tight deadlines, the tools and the skills that make the difference, and how our technicians help industries avoid costly shutdowns. So let's go. Today's guest is Roy Hollis. He is the head of our service tech group, and he has 48 years experience with ProcessBarron. Thank you, Roy, for joining us today.
Well, thank you for allowing me to sit in on your podcast. It's glad to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. So, Roy, what are the most common causes of imbalance in an industrial fan?
Well, I think we need to simplify this. I think we need to look at fan applications. There are some fans that handle hot, dirty gases that are very abrasive, and there's some classifications of fans that handle cool, clean, combustible air. Now, let's take your ID fans, your overfire fans, your FGR fans, and your kiln ID fans. They handle hot gases that are very abrasive, which can cause wear on certain fan components. If the wear is uneven, it will increase the residual balance levels. If the wear is not controlled, you develop open wounds in the fans where debris entrapment will be made easier. And then, again, let's just say on kiln ID fans, they're subject to a lot of debris accumulation on the back sides of the blades, and it can create some excessive unbalance, especially if you have support problems. Now, with that said, let's talk about the fans that handle clean, ambient air, which are PAs, SAs, and FDs. Normally, the only time you have to check the balance on those fans are when they're initially installed, and sometimes they have to be trim balanced because of shipment issues or they wasn't balanced properly at the OEM. But usually those fans are what we call sleepers. They behave very well. Now you have to be cautious because after years of operation, fatigue can set in at different fan components and start cracking, and the unbalanced amplitudes will begin to increase, or foreign objects falling through the duct system or damper blades can strike the fans, which distort them. It can also bend the shafts, which can simulate unbalance. Now, I must caution, if you have a FD, a PA, or a SA, or a fan that handles clean ambient air, and your imbalance starts increasing, I would caution you that you need to inspect that fan as soon as possible because it's most unusual for that to occur on clean fans. Also, every once in a while, the support will deteriorate under a fan, which when that happens, looseness and weakness sets in, and that amplifies residual unbalance. So you have to be very careful when you're diagnosing unbalanced amplitudes.
Okay, so when you first arrive on site, somebody's called and they say, Roy, I need you. I need somebody from your team. What's the first thing you do when you're there to diagnose a fan problem?
All right, first and foremost, I meet with my contact because his concerns are what's most important. I talk to him about his fan, about his vibration. If he thinks it's unbalanced, we'll look at some trend data, and most customers have operational trend data off the fan rotors. I'll look at it, and if it looks like it is, in fact, imbalanced, then after all lotto procedures, lockout, tagouts, are completed, I will actually go in and inspect the fan rotor. And what I'm looking for is causes of unbalance, such as buildup, debris accumulation, and wear, or if anything has struck the fan, or if there's defects at the fan. Now, with that said, if I don't see anything on the inside that stands out, I'll come out, I'll look at all of his support components, make sure there's no broken welds at the pedestals, no loose bolts, no bad grout, no bad piers. And after I've looked at that, I'll set my equipment up. I'll collect phase and amplitude data. We always collect data in the horizontal axis on the fan bearings because that's the axis of least resistance to unbalance. And after I'm satisfied that I have the correct phase and amplitude data, I'll jump out of the balance program, go into the route mode. I'll collect spectra data. I'll look at the amplitude versus a waveform, and if it coincides with the amplitude and phase data, then we proceed with the balance procedure.
Well, so you've been doing this for 48 years, right? What tools or innovations have changed to make your job easier over that span of time? Or is there anything?
Daylight to dark.
Okay.
Let's just say 35 years ago, we had balance machines, and it was nothing more than a box with a strobe light with 2 cables and 2 transducers. In order to acquire the data that I need, I would have to set my transducers up, connect my cables up, and the strobe light, I'd have to go to the filter out mode on the balance machine. I'd have to set the trigger rate on the strobe light to coincide with fan speed in order to acquire the accurate data. If you had a variable frequency drive fan or one that the operators couldn't hold the speed, it made it miserable because if I'm not oscillated in right, my data is corrupted. Plus, the transducers during that time, they rolled off or didn't read accurately below 650 RPM, so you had a sheet of paper with a multiplication factor that you had to use with the amplitude that you recorded. Now, with that being said, those old balance machines did not store any data at all. You had to write it down regardless if it was raining, if it was cold, inside or outside. And anytime you perform the balance procedure, you had to use graph paper and vector on paper. It was very tough in the old days. Now, today we use some of the most modern equipment that there is on the market for balancing as well as vibration analysis. We call those balance analyzers. That I utilize, when I set it up, I utilize a photocell that's looking at a piece of reflective tape on the shaft. It tracks fan speed, it collects phase data, it collects amplitude, it stores it. Plus, when I get ready to perform the balance solution, it has programs in it that automatically calculates what I need to do, how much weight, where I need to put it at, either single plane or dual plane. It's fantastic, makes life a lot easier. Also, with that same analyzer, I can perform peak versus phase coast down during the balance procedure, which allows me to know the health of the foundation, where the resonance frequencies are. Plus, it helps me determine where at and how much trial weight I'm going to place on the fan rotors. Now, with that being said, when I complete the balance procedure, I can use that same analyzer to recommission the fan for the customer. With that same analyzer, I can collect spectral and waveform data. I can determine the health of the fan bearings. I can determine the health of the foundation and the health of the alignment of the bearings and the couplings. I can look at the motor health. Also, I can do vibration analysis, performing modal analysis on supports, And I can do natural frequency testing as if the rotor is cracking. I can do natural frequency tests with the same analyzer and to determine why the fan's cracking. I can do everything. I can solve any problem a customer may have with that fan with today's technology. It's different from daylight to dark.
That's awesome. It's amazing. I'm sure it does make everything a lot.
PB uses the best equipment on the market to provide service for our customers. None better.
Fantastic. So I know you've been on countless numbers of jobs in 48 years. Is there one in particular that stands out that proposed a specific kind of challenge for you?
Well, you heard of spectator sports.
I have.
I had a customer in the Pacific Northwest. It was a paper mill. He started calling me 2 weeks into a problem. They had an ID fan that they could not balance, and it had the entire mill down. It was a one boiler system. It had the paper machine down. I talked with the gentleman for several days. If he'd give me his data, I'd calculate his solution for him and tell him where to put the weight and how much. Unfortunately, they never could get it right. And after about a week and a half, he called me and he said, "Roy, would you come out here and tell me what I'm doing wrong?" And I said, "Certainly, sir. If I can't help you on the phone, I'll be there as quick as I can." So I made the trip to his facility. When I met him in his office, we discussed his problem. We looked at his trend data, and I was sort of antsy because all the answers I give the customer over the phone should have knocked the problem out in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we proceeded to the fan, and guess what?
What?
There was lawn chairs. The fan was on the outside. There was lawn chairs with people with coolers sitting around watching me do everything I was doing. They couldn't work. They couldn't go to work because the boiler was down, and they was wondering what I was going to do to solve their problem. I was nervous, to say the least. Never had a spectator. Well, anyway, I went in and done the routine inspections, externally and internally. I set up on the fan with my equipment. I ran it, and I got the data that I needed for a reference run. We shut it down. I put 2 trial weights on it, cranked it back up, and it reduced the amplitude. And I said, we're headed in the right direction here. And one of the reliability guys said, well, it done the same thing with me, but when I put the correction weights on it, it went the opposite way. I said, well, let's see what happens. So I put the correction weights on, and I got to tell you, there was about 25 people out there, different employees at the mill set. They wanting to go back to work. We cranked it up with the correction weights. Fan was running slick as a button. The reliability technician said, "Gee, that's slick. How did you do that?" And I said, just through calculations and experience. And the entire audience was clapping, what have you. And of course, the fan was put back online. I come back in 12 hours later when there was at normal operation, slick as a button. And the customer was extremely pleased. And you run into all kind of situations, but I never had an audience trying to solve the problem.
Well, I'm sure they were very grateful, and I'm sure they remember it to this day as well.
I hope they do.
I'm sure they do.
Each and every one of them.
I'm sure they do.
Very nice people.
So what is a typical day like for a field service technician?
Ooh. Let's just say, let's look at 2 aspects of his life. He's in town, but he's not on the job. Mm-hmm. We require our service technicians to be in the office 5 days a week. And at any given day, he's traveling on his way to the office, and he's thinking, I could get an emergency phone call, and I won't go back home this evening. Because normally we keep a suitcase packed in case an emergency call comes in. Now, with that said, when he gets to the office, he's working on reports on some analysis he done the week before, the day before, or he may be reducing data from a support modal, if you will, or he may answer a call from a customer who's got a problem. If we can help the customer over the phone, we save them money, and we're always there for them. Also, he may be speaking with a sales representative about a problem he's seen with a piece of equipment and aiding the sales in order to go back to the mill and discuss the problem with his customer. Or he may be speaking with a supervisor in the field who's run up against a mechanical issue he needs some help with. Or he may be doing his safety for the next job he's going to have to go out. He is always busy, whether he's in the office or in the field. Now, with that said, let's just say he's on the job site.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people call us balance technicians, but I'm going to have to be honest with you. Balancing is about 5% of our job scope. But when a technician is in the field, first and foremost, he's talking with the customer. He's listening to their issues. He may be performing a simple balance. He may be determining the RCA for a bearing failure. He may be determining why a fan is cracking. He may be determining why the fan is not performing correctly. He may be doing a support analysis. He may be performing a pre-grout inspection, because once the grout's poured, a lot of rework if things are not right. He may be assisting installing a fan, or he may be doing a complete system inspection. There's a numerous job scopes that a tech service technician does daily.
Yes, I know. Well, you and I used to work together a little more closely than we do now. At one point, I was quoting the field work for your group. So I know that you guys were on the road all the time. If you had to put a number, how many nights a year do you think any of your service techs are actually out on the road?
Before I became the manager of tech service and got busy on the other end of scheduling and managing, I was probably in motels 300 days, 300 nights a year. And the same service technician today during the busy season, he may be looking at 300 days, 300 nights per year at motels, whatever. But it's part of our job. That's what we volunteer for. That's where we can best perform with our company, if you will. We volunteer for that.
And I know there's been several occasions when you or a member of your team are on a job site. A call comes in and you leave from one job site to go to another. So how do you stay prepared for that throughout the year? How are you prepared for that? I guess it just becomes part of your regular life, but routine. I think it's completely different for most people.
It's routine.
How do you stay prepared for it?
Pack plenty of clothes, for sure. But there's different. We may leave one job site where we may just be performing a simple balance. We're headed to a job site where we're the customer's asked us why his fan has had a catastrophic failure, and look at the results of the damages of associated components. But we have to prepare ourselves to handle the problems tomorrow that we haven't encountered yet. So you always have to be prepared. We have a training center that's second to no other fan OEM. And inside that training center, we have every type of bearing that are utilized on fans, whether it be anti-friction or sleeves. We train constantly on their correct installation, RCAs of failed bearings that we bring back. We have several coupling alignment simulators that have all the built-in problems that you run into in the field, and we do that because we can identify problems quickly, resolve them, and get the alignment done. And we have a full-size fan. It's about 50 inches, full size. It's driven with a 25 horsepower motor. It's 900 RPM, and it has a variable frequency drive. And with that fan system, we can simulate any problems that you may encounter in the field with a fan. And in doing that, we build templates, mental and written, to how to identify the source of a problem quickly with each component and not waste any of the customer's time. We do support analysis with our training fan. We do natural frequency testing. We do bearing analysis, coupling analysis, alignment analysis. We do the whole 9 yards. Aerodynamic performance, we do that as well. And like I said earlier, we're preparing ourselves in the training center to solve the problems we haven't encountered in the field as of yet. You've always got to be prepared.
Well, I know that the training center is remarkable. I know we spent some time down there. We've done training sessions down there for salespeople. It's very apparent your team trusts you completely with their training. So I've got 2 questions for you. When you hire in a new service technician, what does that training period look like? Are they shadowed for a while in the field? How do you handle that?
Okay. If the new employee is what we call green, he knows nothing about our industry, we take him in. We have daily classes in the office. We talk about his first priority, and that's learning how to perform balancing, because he's dealing with rotating equipment and you got people's lives in your hands while you're running a fan. First and foremost, we get him safety trained, whether it's MSHA and OSHA or both. We train him in balancing. And from the first day he hires in, after he completes his necessary safety training, he's traveling with a senior member. He's exposed to the environment in the field, the different types of attitudes, the different types of problems, and we nurture him or groom him and grow him off. In about 10 years, he should be able to handle just about any problem the customer has to offer. It's an opportunity to help the customer. Mm-hmm. It takes primarily about 10 years at the rate of progress, because you're not balancing a fan every day. You may be doing millwright work one day. You may be doing support analysis. You may be doing a cracking RCA, but you have to nurture that new employee along the way. And once you get him to a point where he's comfortable going out on his own to perform simple balancing, then he starts climbing the proverbial ladder to take on other responsibilities. About 10 years. Look at Matt and Andrew.
Right.
They're maturing now about 10 years, and if a customer calls me with a problem, we'll discuss it. I'll discuss it with Matt or Andrew, and then off they go.
So how long was before Matt and Andrew were kind of out of the nest, so to speak, when you sent them out on their own?
Balancing?
Yes.
6 months.
6 months or so.
Every person has his own, I guess, level of climbing that ladder.
Sure.
And you have to be very patient. You have to explain everything in detail, because there's different situations in the field that you get into, and you have to handle them correctly. You have people who may bark at you or who may say negative things about you. But in order to handle those correctly, you have to be very diplomatic, because you're representing ProcessBarron, and our customers is our main focus.
Right. And so expanding on that, let's just say, so the scenario unfolds. You've received a call from a salesperson or maybe the customer themselves, because I know customers all over the country and Canada call you by your first name. You've made friendships with all these people over the years. But let's just say you get that call, they've got that problem fan and the boiler's down. So they're in dire straits at this point, and they're calling you to come in and solve that problem. And I think it's got to be a lot easier to do with these people that you've known, you've worked with over the years. Mm-hmm. But let's just say it's a new person, it's a new operator. It might be the night shift operator you haven't met before. So you're walking in, they're in a problem, and you're the first person they see. How do you build trust with that customer at that point?
That's an excellent question. In my opinion, I've got to first let him know I'm there for him. We're going to solve this problem. You got to be positive. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, you got to listen to his opinion. You got to listen to what he has done and what he hasn't done. You got to be respectful. Then I'm going to offer what I can do, the products that we provide and the services that we provide. I am not going to oversell myself. I'm going to deliver what I say I'm going to do. And then from there on out, I'm going to answer his call 24/7. And while we're discussing the reason for his problems, I'm never going to, talk bad about someone or your people should have been doing this or should have been doing that. It was just a scenario that happened. I bet you it won't happen again. Plus, I am never going to speak negative about our competition. Never. Mm-hmm. The customer has got to feel like he's most important. And the only reason that I'm there is to help him with his needs, whether it's material handling, air handling, or APC.
Over the years, you've performed this job yourself, kind of a one-man show all over the continent. Yeah. You've trained numbers of people in the same field over the years. We actually have the training center built just for you, the Roy Hollis Training Center, which is a testament to your contribution to ProcessBarron over the years. But I guess what is the most rewarding part for you? What is the most rewarding part of solving those critical issues in the field?
You know, I don't like to be called a hero. I don't like for somebody to say, geez, if it wasn't for you, we'd still be down. When I'm able to solve a problem in the field, instead of me, let's just say I'm with the customer. We walk up to the piece of equipment that's of concern. I see the problem right offhand. I don't say, well, geez, there it is, man. It's right in broad daylight. I don't do that. I lead that customer into finding that problem himself. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, it's a team effort. And when he and I solve that problem, it makes him look good in front of his management. And it also proves to his management that he selected the right OEM to come in to help them solve their problem. I don't want to be a hero. I want to be a team member.
Well, that's honorable, Roy. And you are so well respected in the industry. I know beyond the ProcessBarron walls, because I've been in the field. I've dealt with customers in certain territories, and they all know you. They've talked to you, you've helped them with something, and then you've got the newer crop of service technicians coming up. And it's one of those things, if Roy says this guy can handle your problem, then that's good enough for the customer. Mm-hmm. They trust that technician that's coming out who has been through this training program mm-hmm. and works for ProcessBarron, they also have the trust in that person too.
Right.
So it means a lot in the industry. And I know that your name is out there. I've heard it everywhere I've ever been, and people ask about you.
Well, I can appreciate that.
They want to know how Roy Hollis is doing. And really, you're kind of known as Professor Roy in a lot of circles.
Some folks call me that. Some folks call me Dr. Roy. Some folks call me Professor Roy.
Yeah.
But I would just as soon be called a friend.
Well, and I think you are a friend. I think you are a friend to all of those people out there, and that's why they remember you. Because if it's good times and bad times, it might actually be a problem that just needs something else, that the magic touch is not going to solve their problem right there. But they know they're getting an honest feedback and opinion and assessment from you and the people on your team. And I think that is invaluable. All right, so again, thinking back over all these years that you've invested your life into this trade, what is one piece of advice that you would give a newcomer into your group? If they came in and said, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, what's that one piece of advice you'd give them?
Listen to me well. You're going to be on call 24/7. You're going to be expected to travel at the drop of a hat. Your integrity level is going to have to be very, very high. Your self-discipline level is going to have to be immaculate. You're going to have to put all people before you. You've got to go that extra step. You've got to research the problem a little bit more. You've got to go further than the last guy that was there who couldn't solve the problem. You've got to be the one who's going to support your customer no matter what. If you get to a point where you think you don't need to learn anything else, that's your first step to failure.
I think that those sentiments are true for a lot of positions and careers.
Yes.
I know ProcessBarron is unique. We have a lot of people that do serve that 24/7 on call. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that sets us apart. So if you also had one piece of advice for the operators in the field, mm-hmm. the guys that are in charge of all of that, what's that advice you'd give to those operators?
Inspect your fan equipment, your air handling equipment, your material handling equipment, your precipitators at least once a year. On your critical path equipment, that if it goes down, it hinders your production. You need to have some type of continuous monitoring devices on that equipment so it's being watched every 10 minutes. The KCF technology, the transducers, and the constant wireless monitoring system that we have to offer now is a piece of equipment that I would strongly recommend our customers who have critical path equipment, that if it fails, my process is over with. You know, a lot of mills have reliability technicians that may collect data off of critical path equipment once a month. But you know, there's 29 to 30 days when nobody's looking at that equipment. And if you have a constant monitoring system on that fan for vibration, for bearing temperatures, somebody's always watching. Nobody's asleep at the wheel. If an alarm is triggered, it notifies the personnel who's monitoring those particular transducers. He looks at it in his software program. He determines what's wrong and a corrective action, and it calls ProcessBarron, and then we call the customer.
Well, I was going to ask you what tools in your tool bag, so to speak, that have changed your job. I know you started when we were talking about the equipment that's changed a lot over the last 35 years and how it has positively impacted your job. And then you just touched on the digital monitoring. So the digital fan guardian, mm-hmm. which is a product offered by ProcessBarron for this. So I guess as we wrap up, do you mind explaining just a couple of minutes what that digital fan guardian is there to do?
Mm-hmm. They're wireless transducers that are attached to the fan bearings. You're monitoring the health of the bearing. You're monitoring everything that's going on with that fan system as far as vibrational wise. Those transducers can detect minute changes in the bearing's health and the unbalance at the fan rotor. It can detect minute changes in coupling alignments. It can detect minute changes in motor performance, if you will. They monitor the temperature, the surface temperature of the bearings that they're attached to. And there's a gateway on the wall that these transducers are sending that data to, and you can set it up by the minute, every 10 minutes, or every how often you want the data sampled. And when there's an alarm triggered, then that alarm is sent to the gateway. The gateway sends that data to the iCloud, which is in the software monitoring programs. The technician who's monitoring those particular sets of transducers is notified by a phone, by a computer. He's notified immediately. He goes to his computer, opens up the software, see what bearing it is, what axis it is, determines what the fault is. He consults the correct personnel at ProcessBarron. We come up with a game plan quickly. We call the customer and tell them what's going to have to be done. Let me tell you something. constant monitoring. These wireless sensors can prevent failures, and failures can take production out for weeks or months if you're not careful. Number one, second to nothing, continuously monitoring.
Well, I think that is excellent advice for everybody out there. So, Roy, as we wrap up, do you have anything you want to close with for our audience and just tell them just what ProcessBarron means to you?
You know, I can get in my vehicle. I've got 2 properties. I can go to either one and I can turn 360 degrees. And everything that I have is due to ProcessBarron. I've worked with him my entire work life, if you will. I've met some of the most fantastic team members that one could ever ask for. If I could do anything over, I wouldn't change a thing. And I know some of the best people in 49 states and 3 different countries I've had the opportunity to work in. I have customers who call me on holidays or just routinely, hey, what's going on? What you been up to? We're doing this, what have you? We retired, we're here, come see us. Working with a company like ProcessBarron is one of the most rewarding experiences I think I could ask for in my lifetime.
Thank you, Roy. Well, you mean a lot to us, and I'm just so glad that you sat down with us today because I think it's important that everybody hears your story.
Everybody needs to know that ProcessBarron is second to nobody.
I agree with that. I agree completely.
Always.
Thank you, Roy, so much.
You're quite welcome.